the table here in terms of drafting. Now, the map choice will be Sky Temple with our normal bans removed. Actually, not Braxis, Battlefield of Eternity banned, so Braxis is available. Well, Skya not, but Sky Temple is the choice of Ballistix. That'll be their first map.
I think BlossoM is thinking that Ballistix has way too many heroes that really prefer chunking down immortals like Vala, even Artanis, Hanzo, of course, starting from there. I think that's really smart ban going against Ballistix. They can also pick Braxis, and that was their upset map too against MVP. Oh, not MVP. Against KSB Black. So maybe they're considering of that later on, but they're not going to bring it today. Well, right now, and let's go into Sky Temple.
All right, so the priority has been on the Shimada brothers globally in almost every single match, and we've seen the immediate lock-in, even in Korea, of Hanzo by these teams if left available. Now, Ballistix no stranger to that. SC has played the Hanzo. In fact, the only player to in the first 2 days when I was commentating with you on day 2 to really use Dragon Strike to pretty minimal success. We did see it later on Sunday though, better Dragon Blades coming out in Korea. Dragon Strikes, keep calling it Blade.
Too many dragons.
That's Genji. He's about to get banned out.
Yes.
So won't be seeing any Dragon Blades, I don't think, in this game. But where we go from here is really interesting. And this is the discussion that everyone's been having about triple bans, because the Shimada brothers band, first pick always will take Greymane. He is by far the best hero in the game right now at doing everything. And we've lived through different metas in the past of Heroes of the Storm in Korea where that hero was Falstad, that hero was Tassadar, that hero was Sonya, and even there were times where that hero was Uther in Korea. But this has happened many times with our two-ban system where the first pick becomes always that top tier hero that can do everything, and right now that's Greymane. And I feel like you could either, I think the weak idea against it if you're worried about playing against Greymane is to try to counter Greymane. I don't think that's smart. I think doing this, banning the third hero here, forcing the Hanzo pick, then taking the Greymane Uther, for example, is Ballistix's plan. I think it's a very smart one, but BlossoM's going to change it up completely here. They're going next level into the mind game, so we're going to lock in Anubarak first.
Man, Anubarak does have 11 and 1. 91% win rate right now in Korea, so he's been climbing up highly. I did not know that he was going to be the very first pick of the first game. Of course, first ban right now, you kind of do have to ban Genji because you can't have that pair with Uther anyhow. So it doesn't really affect you. It doesn't really work out too well for the draft for you to only take Genji if you're losing Uther. So basically, first ban, you rather just either leave both open by banning something else like Avatar or maybe Anubarak from the beginning. But other than that, you basically have to ban Genji. That's why the first ban is banning Genji all the time.
Yeah. So this will be the second game in HGC Korea where when Greymane was available and the Shimada brothers were banned, he was not first picked. This will be the second game this tournament where he was not chosen immediately. Now, we'll take the Hanzo Uther rotation. We saw this actually fail quite a bit on day 1, with KSV actually prioritizing the Hanzo with the Uther, but it's an interesting one to me because it feels like Greymane has suddenly, at least over the course of this weekend, dropped in priority for some reason, because Uther doesn't directly synergize with Hanzo. He was picked with Hanzo exclusively against Genji first picks in Korea, so when I see this rotation here, I'm a little bit surprised that Greymane is still missing in action at this moment in time. Now, BlossoM has the opportunity to pick him here, but yeah, it's quite odd, in fact. So let's see what BlossoM wants to do in terms of DPS. We might already be seeing some of that unusual BlossoM flair here in the first game.
Yeah, we do have lots of poking from the side with Hanzo, but if you take Greymane, that also let the other team take Hanzo. It's more of a... The picks has been more of a pair up with the support, how well the DPS actually works with the support, and Uther has been quite high in the success rate, so I think Ballistix just gave that up and just took Hanzo instead because they have to take Uther along with them.
There's the Greymane and Sonya.
And we won't be seeing Sonya too much after maybe 2 weeks poison nerf, and that's gonna come in very soon.
You know, the poison nerf, I actually, as much as I'm kind of like a Sonya main, I play a ton of Sonya, and it feels really good when you hit that spear. I really like the change because it doesn't change the solo matchup. It just changes overall like her ability to pick targets in the late game. And the solo matchup is, yeah, the solo matchup is the most interesting thing about her to me in terms of the pro scene. And now this is what BlossoM has prioritized. We figured out they want to control the macro. They're using Greymane to be able to push lanes. He's got good wave clear. He can camp really easily. And they have Nubrock, which helped them invade the Siege Giant camps on the south of the map. And now they're trying to control the solo lane. So they're trying to control the macro aspect of this game with this potential Dahaka ban. And I really like this because it's one of Ballistix' greatest strengths is the ability to control the map through pressure. And removing some of those tools from Ballistix means that, sure, they're going to have great macro and great game sense regardless, but they don't have the best tools to use that strength. You've removed them and you've controlled the game in a different way, and it all goes back to that Anubarak pick at the beginning, which threw Ballistix off. They were unwilling to pick the Greymane. We've seen SC prioritize the Hanzo twice now over the Greymane, so this seems very intelligent what we're seeing here from BlossoM, and it probably all just orchestrated by Wiz, one of the greatest minds in Korea.
I think their drafting style is really unique, and following that up with the Greymane Zonia, and I think of course, picking is very important, but depending on what you ban, I think you really have to think twice, think 3 times before you ban something. And I think they just made the perfect choice against Jungha's Dehaka. Even though you can win lane, but you will be losing in somewhere else when Dehaka goes and joins the team fight, as you mentioned, globally as Ballistix, one of the best teams using that rotation with Dehaka. Even Jungha has been using some Leoric when the Dehaka was not available, not banned, but this time they're going for ETC, and then all the time they were going for, instead of Vala nowadays, they're going for that Tychus.
Yeah, it's, we talked about the burst meta in a lot of ways. Tychus is not burst per se, but he does help melt the front line. It's very strong against a tanky top laner, which is in this case Sonya. Now, what's also strong against this tanky front line where they have Sonya as their solo laner is a Malthael pick, and they might bring that in to help relieve that top pressure based on what BlossoM does. Obviously, a Nubrock can gank for the Malthael matchup like a Muradin can, but it feels less likely, so that's a strong option here for them.
Let's see if they actually want to bring in Falstad on their own. I think banning Dehaka means that they want to grab their own global, and they have been using Falstad. I think they used it once, but when they grabbed that Nubrock, I think they have some plan behind it.
Yeah.
Maybe trying to use Cocoon Gust to isolate just a single target.
There's definitely a lot you can do with that kind of combination. Falstad has been a great secondary solo laner. We have seen these 3-man invade rotations on Sky Temple. Will be the Sylvanas though. So Sylvanas finally makes an appearance here in HGC Korea. You and I have been talking about this hero a lot. You and I disagreed. You and I disagreed though. I felt like we'd be seeing a lot of Sylvanas this tournament before day one.
And then I said maybe once or twice this season.
And I mean, still we haven't seen her a lot, but I'm curious to see how this is going to all pan out. But this means that the solo lane gets really interesting because Sylvanas can actually rotate up there when Sonya comes down to control the temples. But Sylvanas can also push the top lane strongly, and then you can have this invade squad with Nubrock, Greymane, Rhaegar rotating from the mid lane to the Siege Giant camps. So BlossoM will try to control the Siege Giant camps with this comp while putting a lot of pressure on the lanes. I think Ballistix needs to have a strong matchup that could deal with deal with Sonya, but they could consider the possibility of shutting down the Sylvanas split push with a solo laner like Zeratul. Will be the Leoric though, and to be honest, I don't know if this is going to offer them the pressure that they need to control this map. I like a lot where Ballistix draft is going in terms of team fighting and safe all-around late straight up macro play. I think obviously Ballistix does have a better team fighting composition, but in terms of control of the early game and trying to snowball this very snowbally map, I lean towards BlossoM here.
Yep, me too. I think BlossoM, if they really pressure the lane from the beginning, because they have Sylvanas, I think they can get that level ahead and try to keep that lead from the beginning till the end. If Ballistix really does not have an answer against it, I think they really have to force their rotation down and try to compete with Ballistix, because they will be likely to be pushing top or bottom, very likely bottom at first. Even from the very beginning of the game, I think they really have to be careful, looking down all lanes, trying to really keep the EXP and structure for themselves from the very beginning of the game.
Let's see how this one all plays out. It is going to, of course, be Wiz on that Sonya. Not going to be flexing Sylvanas into the solo lane like the old times, like 2015, like old school China. It'll be modern life, of course, on that hero. So SC will be playing the Hanzo yet again, considered by most to be the best Hanzo in Korea at the moment. And so let's see how this one all pans out, G-Clef, because level 1 Sylvanas, oh, we have a pause here, so we'll probably have a little bit more time to talk about this. Level 1 Sylvanas play has always been about pushing a cannon tower, like, you know, a wall, pushing a lane
Yes.
at level 1.
Mm-hmm.
Just the same way that Zarya was always used later on to do similar things, but with how they're positioned at the gate right now, it looks like they might just try to get a little damage done to the mid lane and then rotate away quickly, which is kind of curious. Looks like it's a issue with Gondar's computer here.
Yeah, Sylvanas has been popping up a little bit, not too much, as I was expecting after all the lane changes, all the fort, the ammunition after that was gone. I thought Sylvanas would rise up super highly because she can actually push the lane. It doesn't matter if runs out of ammo or not, because she can actually stun all the structures from shooting shots. And
Exactly.
You can make all the lane phase so much easier if the other person is missing from the lane. But we don't see Sylvanas too much. Seems like Gondar's having some keyboard or mouse issue.
Yeah, getting the fort is a lot easier in the early game because the sentry cannon tower is removed in this new rework of, you know, forts and keeps and things like that. I don't know what else to call it. Basically, the map minions forts rework. The gameplay update, I think, is what they called it officially when Blizzard released it. But very stylish looking keyboard here. Maybe less functional, I guess, at the moment. But regardless, I think that how this level 1 Sylvanas play goes will teach us a lot about what BlossoM's plan is in terms of using the hero. And this is definitely a rehearsed strategy. This is not a coincidence by any means that they just decided to lock her in like this. There are many other better options in terms of DPS as a secondary DPS to the Grey main. So, look, there's a possibilities. You talked about mind control earlier. I don't know if that's going to necessarily actually going to occur, but, you know, mind control can be used along with Cocoon to essentially isolate 2 targets, so that, you know, you can win the fight kind of by a numbers game. And then you also have the opportunity to use Wailing Arrow to eliminate the ETC's Mosh Pit, for example. You can interrupt that. You can silence an Uther to prevent the Divine Shield from going off, for example. So we're looking at a lot of different potential things here. I'm leaning towards the Wailing Arrow myself, and I think you are probably too, but you were just kind of joking around with mind control. But I think there's...
Of course it's always mind control.
Well,
Wolf.
I mean, I think the only thing less likely than mind control is Rhaegar taking Bloodlust with a Sylvanas screaming comp. Like,
maybe if they're
rushing, auto-attacking real fast. Like
rushing for core, maybe, but unless that happens, no. Very unlikely. But it was also kind of interesting. They were also still going with Leoric at the end. There wasn't not really... They don't really have too much. Of course, Hanzo's Scatter Arrow can actually help with the Entomb. Maybe he won't even get Entomb as Uther cannot heal too many targets. Maybe it's just going to be March just to sustain an ETC for him to create excellent zoning when he wants that big mosh pit when there's a team fight.
Yeah, I suppose that idea makes sense. You can set up the Dragon Arrow, then the mosh pit after the Entomb. But I feel like right now in Korea, when you talk about drafting solo laners, if you're thinking about your solo laner being like a team fighter, then you're really thinking about Malthael. And like if you're thinking about Leoric and you're really thinking about combos at this point, then I think you've kind of set yourself up for disappointment, because oftentimes like Leoric and Tombs are just impossible to pull off because the team's positioning is too good. And what seems to be like what you would see like in a Twitch clip on the front page of Reddit, or like on that highlight video that like what's his name?
Red and Strike?
That Pastry Timer, not Pastry Time, the other guy, Pally Time, would like put on YouTube, like, and it's like you've got something like that going along. And it's like in this game, I don't see that happening. We might have like one moment, or like Entomb catches one person, then that person gets hit by a dragon's arrow, and then maybe they die, like depending on who they caught. But I don't think like drafting around the Lyric for that reason should be what they should be focused on. Leoric before his rework was really good with Royal Focus at jumping between lanes, so he could theoretically like push 2 lanes even on this map. But with obviously the changes to his Royal Focus, that's not really an option anymore. So I'm curious about this comp. Like Leoric does well against Sonya, but does not dominate the matchup. And what is going to likely happen based on what we've seen in comps like this before, even we've seen Li Ming doing it instead of Sylvanas or Gul'dan we've seen in China. So you have 2 laners, the top laner pushing hard, and Li Ming was the one we saw the most in Korea for whatever reason, because she's still good with team fighting. Probably be Sylvanas pushing the bottom lane, trying to put as much pressure down there as possible, while then like forcing rotations. She's going to escape. She's always going to use her her E to escape. Then during those times, either the mid lane's going to be pushed hard by the 3-man that remains there, or they're going to invade the Siege Giants. And that's what we saw, this 3-man invade, and they've got a new Brock, which makes that invade very successful. So that's like where I see the strategy going here for BlossoM, just based on what we've seen. But like they could do something crazy, man. Like maybe we don't know how they do it, but they know this strat where they like push like all the top lane until
5-man push all the way.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we don't know exactly what they're gonna do, but my theory is it's gonna be a more standard game. But in order for all this to happen, for a new Brock to invade, Gondar's keyboard's got to work. Because keyboard doesn't work, you can't die.
Keyboard's got to work, and
all right, well. This got a little bit weird. We didn't really see what happened there. I guess Watchtower got controlled by Ballistix, so it would have been good to know how that happened. But looks like the level 1 is not really going to happen here. Obviously, Modern Life is going to struggle to get much done. Sylvanas was slightly nerfed.
And Ballistix kind of expected them to come push one lane somewhere, so they had everyone spread it out, top, mid, and bottom. But not going to really pressure. I don't know if it was because of the delay or if they didn't plan on even from the beginning of the game. Seems like they're just gonna have Sylvanas pushing the bottom lane with the rotation, and nothing too crazy for now.
Yeah, just rotating up now. Gonna do, it looks like a fast night camp here. Really interesting timing on this. Just rushing up to that. Having Rhaegar, who's got great wave clear, deal with the bot push, but he's actually trapped. This is a great rotation by Ballistix. Saw him missing mid. Pings come through. That's first blood to Ballistix. Really good rotation there, realizing that very clearly Sylvanas and Greymane were missing. They knew they were not doing this camp. If they had been doing this camp, the rotation would still be smart because they could invade and steal it, get a kill there, possibly a double. In this case, they get the kill and the camp, which no one can relieve the pressure of in the bot lane. So Ballistix is like crushed the bottom lane now, can rotate focusing on mid. At the same time, Ballistix has to get value with Sylvanas with this night camp right now. And, you know, it's tough to say who's going to get the better end of this, but I kind of like Ballistix's position better. Look at this rotation up. They didn't really even get the whole wall, whereas half the bot forward is dead now.
Yeah, the thing is, if they really force those kind of rotation, they have to do something else onto the other side. Unless that happens, they're not really gaining anything, and from that regard, losing that camp, I think they have backed themselves up a lot from the beginning of the game. So they have to slowly come back up with Sylvanas. Let's see how they use Sylvanas. Seems like they just want to go around with the Sylvanas, try to really force the rotation all the time, so they won't really fall behind Ballistix's plan here.
So it looks like what I was thinking about earlier with the invade, it was definitely a strategy they were considering, but they kind of lost their footing early on. We can see that they're posturing for potentially an invade and a trapping of Hooligan if he decides to rotate down. And what they've said, the cool way they set it up is like Hooligan knows he can't come down here now, and then Sylvanas in the lane push into this, and they get a ton of damage, and they're going to get this full wall, and they are going to be able to shortly thereafter get the healing well. Easily before the next temple phase, they should be able to get it. They don't need it now. It's not important now, but it will be later. And Ballistix is just trying to set up an angle to cut Gondar off here. Unsuccessful.
And it seems like
it's another kill here.
So we got Jungad in the rotation. Hanzo is having a little more time at the bottom lane with the wave clear, and BlossoM's really using this strategy, and it's working for now. Just going around with Sylvanas, try to pressure lane to destroy structure. In the bottom, they didn't really get the entire wall down in the bottom lane, did they?
No.
So only the towers, right?
Yeah.
But still, I think that's still good enough.
Remember that the bot lane has full towers up right now for BlossoM. They lost 2/3 of their like fort health because of the siege giant caps, but they actually didn't panic. They made the most cost-efficient, or kind of a, I guess just, I don't want to say cost-efficient, just the most efficient rotation to make sure they got EXP per second in such a way that, because they didn't lose the fort, it was still okay. And I think we're seeing a lot of the impact of the Leoric pick here. Finally, he's able to find a spot in the bot lane where he can kind of just farm safely, but now he's missing. This is a 4v3 fight. They cannot win. Sony easily solos the top temple, has those final shots, rotates down. So BlossoM wins the temples, and all that Ballistix walks away with here is a little bit of extra soak in the bot lane from Jungha. He gets 1 or 2 extra waves down there, and still, regardless of that, they're down an entire level. Structure lead in terms of damage done by temples to BlossoM, who took the top fort down completely.
And Modern is going for that, let's push the wave and let's push all the buildings and minions by myself build with those talents. So I think he really has to stay in lane and or just try to pressure until 10. I think they can do that with with the golems coming in. Let's see.
So it's definitely going to be a go for the throat game for Greymane. It's going to be insanely powerful because of all the poke that they have with Savant's Shadow Dagger, which has cooldown reduction, of course, for heroes. And when we get to 16, if the game goes that long, I mean, there's so much potential for poke damage with that dagger. Plus Greymane's cocktails with the full cocktail build he's taken here. So looks like the wall will start to fall here a little bit with this heavy commitment of 4 in the bot lane. But this means that they're losing experience in mid. Leoric making the long rotation up top to just get all experience he can. Leoric is on cleanup duty right now to grab any experience that's leaked around the map so they can catch up to 10. We'll see if BlossoM wants to try to make a boss play here. They can kill the healing fountain first. This is always their ultimate goal before the temple phase starts, and we'll be able to get it easily. In fact, trying to get the fort too. Not much Ballistix can do pre-10 to counter it, so they're going to push mid at the same time.
It's not a bad strategy, but they need a little bit more time. I think they will hit 10 right when the temple activates. But in a way, and it is Wailing Arrow, as very likely it was going to be Wailing. I was just joking a little bit.
I mean, the thing is, like, there is like an argument for mind control given the Nubarak comp, but no, we're gonna dream too big today. G-Clef, nothing out of the realm of possibility, but out of the realm of likelihood.
Well, let's see the question mark on Hanzo's face, though. It is Arrow.
Okay, I was like, what are you going to try to set this up with? I don't
with the tomb, I think? That's like the only one.
Yeah.
With a big mosh pit.
You're really reaching if you did that, but they're not reaching. They're going to do the normal one. Mosh pit comes through. Mosh pit obviously can pair with the Dragon's Arrow. It can all work with the Entomb, which I think is part of what the Leoric pick is supposed to do, as you predicted.
Yeah, sometimes with an ETC, with lots of CC available in the team, like when I play Hanzo, my teammates often pressure me or say sometimes we have a lot of CC anyhow, so we don't need the Dragon's Arrow. You can actually take Dragon Strike as a damaging tool.
Yeah. Well, let's see if Entomb can be set up here. It's going to be the big question mark. Leoric does get cleansed. Or actually, no, it wasn't cleansed. He was just in Wraith Walk form, my bad. Saw the Unstoppable. We normally don't have this in English, so sometimes it freaks me out when I see stuff like that.
We're way too Korean now.
Yeah. So only Sonya has popped her heroic here. Looks like it will actually time out, in fact. And Ballistix, with the threat of the Entomb and Mosh Pit, without using a single heroic, were able to ward BlossoM away. And that is the strength of their comp. It's not as powerful macro-wise, but in terms of straight 5v5 battle, BlossoM has to walk away and respect the potential combos you were talking about. Respect that Mosh Pit in the choke point, the Entomb, which can be set up with the Holy Cow combo, as we call it, with the Divine Shield onto the Mosh. There's a lot of things that could go wrong in those choke points. So Wiz and you know, his crew here decide, let's back off. We have an experience lead. We have a slight structure lead. It's okay if they get these final shots. Let's do something else on the map. Let's take an objective.
Exactly. So I think that they just went for that strategy. As they're still leading, they just have to not make a mistake, as Gondar's Nubarak first pick is working pretty well for now, and diving in on the EDC does get Cleanse.
Yeah. Cleanse is not going to be used for an aggressive Mosh. They still have the Divine Shield. Jungha does eat a ton of damage, and you know, when this area is, I know it's kind of a choke point, but it's definitely more open than the last area. It's still in this area. Ballistix has to be careful, but for the same reasons that they backed away last time, BlossoM will back away, trying to bait out heroics.
So good. It's a great place for Hanzo to get all that Q, all that scatter arrow damage onto all the targets onto the other side. And BlossoM, there's no reason for them to fight in those small choke points. Yeah. It'll be actually favoring the other team so much more. So they decide to back out, just pressure a little bit. I like their choices. I like their choice of going in aggressive, but it's not the right moment, then they just back out. I like those kind of choices all the time.
BlossoM is playing very decisively. Like, I think for the first time, really, we saw them obviously play all last year, but for the first time, BlossoM looks like an experienced team, you know, and a team that has, because they stayed together with the same roster, they're basically able to make decisions quickly and concisely. Whereas other teams will not. Like Ace will struggle later on tonight, maybe more than Miracle. Great Impale there to actually slow down this rotation, get some dismounts. By the way, this is going to be one of those auto attack builds from Hanzo. And he actually got like the insta mount on 13 when he jumps over. With
that's the best one on 13. That's a passive. You should always go for that. As I think we saw Redemption finished also. Of course, he will lose some snacks if he dies. Yeah. If he dies, but still. Very good that he also has that finished.
So look at all this poke coming through. Uther really struggles against this kind of slow, sustained damage. He only can do burst heals. It's going to have to be about those Radiances to make sure he gets the full heals through, whereas BlossoM just kind of outstaying with Rhaegar here against the more slow damage coming out from Hanzo and Tychus. But they've zoned out Modern Life pretty well in a lot of these fights.
Hanzo, and he is taking damage from going in himself. He's getting very low with another auto attack. He goes down without the Ancestral.
Look at that Wailing Arrow buying a lot of time here. The cleanse comes through. It's just not enough. Mosh here as well with the cleanse combined, and that is going to be a triple here for Ballistix. And it all came down to the positioning of Gondar. He was a little bit too aggressive, taking that Hanzo damage you were talking about. When the armor reduction comes through, obviously then it becomes a bigger problem for Nubrock to be taking those auto attacks, especially from Tychus. When he got low, it was a late reaction coming through for Nasong to drop that Ancestral. And this mistake alone completely crushes BlossoM's momentum they had in this game, and may actually be, this fight may be remembered as the fight that cost them the game. If we look at this, we look back at this moment in 5 minutes time, because Ballistix has now taken boss to have 100% tempo control, and are about to have a talent to advantage. We saw Leoric go up top to get that extra soak, and I mean, the combo potential is there. I mean, Dragon's Arrow is going to be ready in 10 seconds. So we're going to have the Entomb as well. Like, BlossoM now has to play scared. They're playing a talent tier down. And you know what? They actually decide to let the boss hit the wall, because we're only 11 minutes into the game. This is an interesting choice. I don't think Ballistix expected that.
I think BlossoM had to either choose one, and they chose a temple. I don't think it's the best choice, but Mosh Pit is not available, so at least they know that now. And they're going in a little bit as Wiz getting hard slided.
This time the Ancestral connects though, and Jungha is very low. Here comes Dudu trying to get that pick.
Failed shield may cost him, but Jungha's getting that health back with the arrow. Comes in with the stun. And if he had the Entomb right here, then it could have been a big
still
Mosh Pit coming back in 14 seconds. I think they want to chase a little bit more.
The swing here with a huge slow, almost able to cause several members on BlossoM's side to die. This fight, I think, was fantastically executed by Ballistix. The prediction of the Ancient Spear, so they knew the Ancient Spear, the upgraded one, I think it's called, what, Composite Spear, whichever one allows it to pull, which is the only build. Sony only has one build, and I think that's fine. People are always like, well, she needs more than one build. I'm like, no, actually, it's fine. You can play out her differently if you want, but this is the best build. So she pulls towards the wall. Everyone knew on Ballistix side that she was going to do that, and it was predicted by Hooligan. He was able to see that and power slide in the perfect place to counter that. It was very obvious that Sony was going to do that. That was what helped them make such a great play there. Forced the Ancestral to be used so early.
Even with a missed Divine Shield, Ballistix was able to win because SDE has been just doing damage. And they're winning the poking fight even before the team fight happens. Because of all the poking, Gondar was gone when the mid-tempo fight was there, because Gondar only had 60% of HP when he was diving in. He wasn't even kind of sure, and he had to back out, and he died while backing out. Seems like the shot calling for the entire team fight is not really working out perfectly, as Hanzo's poking will just work against them all the time.
Yeah.
That's the basic attack build is coming in super heavily. It seems like Redemption is the way to go for Hanzo most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's some exceptions, like maps that are heavy for camping.
Yes, yes.
Like Cursed Hollow, for example, we might not see this build, but in this case, like, we've seen both, and I personally, like, the auto attack build is my go-to in like solo queue, because I feel like it allows me to do the maximum amount of damage, and people won't say like, lol, Hanzo main in the chat at me, look at Hanzo's damage. But yeah, in this comp that has such heavy frontlining and has the Entomb, for example, and the potential for stuns, like, I think it's very smart. So this is just a play to get the keep. They don't need anything else but that. They move as 5 to make sure it's the safest play. Look at BlossoM's initiation. They don't have much. They have the ability to prevent Uther from doing a Divine Shield and remove what little healing can provide in a longer fight, but not very strong with a comp that doesn't need Divine Shield to operate. And they have Wailing Arrow, which they've used every single time defensively so far. So initiation for them is tough. That's why Ballistix is able to bully some of these objectives, just go take the keep, then walk away. And now they're looking to set up for whichever temple they prefer, as there are no camps available on the map right now. Yep. BlossoM is trying to this party bush, but I think it's very much telegraphed, and Sonic Arrow spots everything.
Perfect,
so
perfect place for everything to be spotted, and BlossoM. I think they still have a chance, very good chance of using the Cocoon. I think they have the theme, they know what to do, but they just can't work it out against this kind of positioning from Ballistix. As Hooligan's in the front, Jungha's looking for that Entomb angle. And when Sonya or Greymane dives in, the Entomb will be perfectly on spot.
Okay.
Have Stun Cleanse go down to Hanzo. He's the one taking the most damage.
Again, Gondar takes a lot of damage coming through here from that armor reduction. Entomb here traps Dudu, who's doing no damage right now. He's just walking into it. It's not going to make it go away faster. Regardless, though, Wiz is the one making this happen. Divine Shield comes up late. There's the holy cow! And that is going to be double Mosh here. Might be a double kill. Wiz very low, trying to heal up. It's going to be Dudu who dies third. And now this is just looking like a team wipe to end the game. Ballistix gonna take this game by the horns now. SC baiting Nasong in. Nasong's just trying to buy as much time as possible. Dragon's arrow there, not quite the direction he was looking for, but it's all right. Gonna walk across the map and end it. I think, you know, the question we were asking earlier was that team fight they lost towards the mid lane going to be what cost them the game 5 minutes later? No, they lost this team fight, which cost them the game, but it removed control. It meant that BlossoM was never able to dictate the pace of the game, never able to puppeteer Ballistix into moving where they wanted them to. And as a result, as soon as Ballistix didn't have to run around the map dealing with that pressure, dealing with the objectives, they just fought better. They take the first map in a 9-to-1 kill score, sub 16 minutes. Their map choice. The idea we saw